The Okoro mansion stood like a mausoleum on the cliffs of Lagos, its glass walls reflecting the restless Atlantic below. Inside, the air was heavy, not with dust, but with absence. Zane Okoro, 38, sat in his study, staring at a canvas on the wall, a swirl of blues and golds, painted by his late wife, Lola. It was her last piece before the car accident stole her 18 months ago. The colors mocked him now, a reminder of a life that no longer existed. Zane's phone buzzed on the mahogany desk, but he ignored it. His tech empire, Okoro Innovations, was thriving. Another million in the bank this quarter, but what did it matter? His daughter, Ayana, hadn't spoken a word since the funeral. At 5 years old, she was a ghost in her own home, drifting through the halls with her mother's teddy bear clutched to her chest. The bear, named Sunny, was threadbare, its once bright yellow fur dulled by time and tears. "Mr. Okoro?" A voice broke the silence. It was Chioma, the nanny, standing at the door, her apron wrinkled from a long day. "Ayana won't eat again. She just stares at the plate." Zane rubbed his temples, the weight of his grief pressing harder. "Try the rice with stew. It was her favorite." "I did." She pushed it away. Chioma hesitated, then added softly, "She needs you, sir." Zane's jaw tightened. He wanted to be there for Ayana, but every time he looked into her eyes, Lola's eyes, he saw the wreckage of their life. "I'll talk to her later," he muttered, turning back to the canvas. Chioma lingered, then sighed and left. The house fell silent again, save for the distant crash of waves. Zane poured a glass of whiskey, the amber liquid catching the light. He didn't drink it, just stared, lost in the void where his family used to be. Upstairs, Ayana sat cross-legged on her bed, Sunny pressed against her cheek. Her room was a shrine to Lola. Photos on the dresser, a scarf draped over a chair, a half-finished sketchbook on the nightstand. Ayana's small fingers traced the bear's worn stitches, her lips moving soundlessly. She wasn't praying or singing, just mimicking words she couldn't bring herself to say. The mansion's grandeur felt like a lie. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and a view worth millions couldn't fill the hole Lola left. Zane had fired 3 nannies in the past year, each unable to connect with Ayana's silence. Chioma was the last, and she was on the verge of quitting. Zane knew he needed help, but the idea of letting someone new into their broken world felt like betrayal. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of grief, Ayana slipped off her bed and padded to the window. She pressed her forehead against the glass, staring at the ocean. Somewhere, deep in her silent heart, she was searching for a way to make the house feel like home again. The next morning, a knock echoed through the mansion's foyer. Zane, still in yesterday's shirt, opened the door to find a woman standing on the steps. She was in her late 20s, with deep brown skin and eyes that held a quiet strength. Her hair was tucked under a simple headwrap, and she carried a worn duffel bag. "You must be Nia," Zane said, his voice flat. He'd hired her through an agency, desperate after Chioma's resignation letter landed on his desk. "Yes, sir. Nia Adebayo." Her voice was warm but measured, like she was used to proving herself. She extended a hand, but Zane didn't take it. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. "Ayana's upstairs. She doesn't talk much, or at all really. Your job is to keep her fed, clean, and out of trouble. That's it." Nia nodded, her gaze sweeping the foyer. The space was pristine but cold, like a museum nobody visited. "I understand. Can I meet her?" Zane led her to Ayana's room, his steps heavy. When he knocked, there was no answer, but he pushed the door open anyway. Ayana sat on the floor, surrounded by crayons and paper, Sunny in her lap. She didn't look up. "Ayana, this is Nia. She's helping out." Zane's words felt inadequate, but he didn't know what else to say. Nia crouched to Ayana's level, her movements slow, deliberate. "Hi, Ayana. I love your bear. Does it have a name?" Ayana's eyes flicked to Nia, then back to her drawing. No response. Zane sighed. "She's been like this since." He stopped, the words too heavy. "Just do what you can." As Zane left, Nia stayed crouched, studying Ayana. The girl's drawing was chaotic, blacks and reds scribbled over a faint outline of a woman. Nia's heart tugged. She'd seen grief before, in her own life, though she kept that story locked away. Sonny's a good name, Nia said softly, nodding at the bear. My brother had one like it when we were kids. Called it Mr. Fluff. She smiled, but Ayana didn't react. Still, Nia felt a spark, something in the girl's eyes, a flicker of curiosity. Downstairs, Zane overheard the one-sided conversation through the baby monitor he kept in his study. Nia's voice was patient, unhurried, unlike the nannies who'd rushed to fill the silence. He turned the monitor off, unsettled by the sound of hope in his house. 3 days later, Nia was still a stranger in the Okoro mansion, but she moved with purpose. She cooked egusi soup, the aroma filling the kitchen, hoping the familiar scent might coax Ayana to eat. The girl sat at the table, Sonny propped beside her plate, staring at the food. Want to try a little? Nia asked, sliding the bowl closer. Ayana's fingers tightened on Sonny, but she didn't move. Nia didn't push. Instead, she picked up the bear and made it talk. Sonny says this soup smells like a party, she said in a playful voice. Ayana's lips twitched, almost a smile, but she stayed silent. Zane appeared in the doorway, his face shadowed. She won't eat if you play games, he said, his tone sharp. Just leave the food and go. Nia set Sonny down, unfazed. Sometimes games help. She's listening, even if she doesn't show it. Zane's eyes narrowed. You've been here 3 days. Don't act like you know her. Nia met his gaze, her voice steady. I know she's hurting, and so are you. The words hung between them, raw and unwelcome. Zane turned and left, the slam of his study door echoing through the house. Nia exhaled, her hands trembling slightly. She'd overstepped, but she couldn't help it. Ayana wasn't the only one trapped in grief. That night, Nia found Ayana in the living room, curled up on the couch with Sonny. The girl was asleep, her small chest rising and falling. Nia draped a blanket over her, then noticed something on the floor, a crumpled drawing. It showed a stick-figure family, a man, a girl, a woman with a bright yellow scarf, and faintly, another woman in the background, fading into the page. Nia's throat tightened. She tucked the drawing into her pocket, a silent promise to keep trying. A week into her job, Nia was cleaning Lola's old art studio, a room Zane had forbidden anyone to touch. Dust coated the easels, and half-finished canvases leaned against the walls. Nia hesitated, then began tidying, careful not to disturb the sacred space. Under a pile of sketchbooks, she found a small wooden music box, its surface carved with sunflowers. Curious, she wound it up. A soft, haunting melody filled the room, like a lullaby from another life. Nia froze, mesmerized, until a gasp broke her trance. Ayana stood in the doorway, her eyes wide, Sonny dangling from her hand. The girl's lips trembled, and for a moment, Nia thought she'd cry. Instead, Ayana ran forward and grabbed the music box, clutching it to her chest. I'm sorry, Nia said quickly. I didn't know. Ayana didn't look at her. She sat on the floor, rocking slightly as the melody played. Nia knelt beside her, unsure what to do. Was this your mom's? She asked gently. Ayana nodded, a tiny movement. It was the first real response Nia had gotten. Her heart raced. She was breaking through, but the moment felt fragile, like glass. Zane's voice cut through the air. What's going on? He stormed into the studio, his face a mask of fury. I told you not to come in here. Ayana flinched, clutching the music box tighter. Nia stood, placing herself between father and daughter. I was cleaning. I found this, and Ayana. You had no right. Zane's voice cracked, not with anger but with pain. He looked at Ayana, then at the music box, and something in him broke. Get out, he whispered. Nia left the room, her chest tight. She'd crossed a line, but she'd also seen Ayana respond. That nod, that connection, it was worth the risk. At midnight, the mansion was still, the only sound the hum of the ocean beyond the cliffs. Nia couldn't sleep, her mind replaying the music box incident. She slipped downstairs to make tea, her bare feet silent on the cold marble. As she passed Ayana's room, she heard a sound, a soft, murmured word. Mama. Nia froze, her breath catching. She peered through the cracked door and saw Ayana asleep, Sunny in her arms, her lips moving. Mama, stay. Nia's eyes stung. She didn't know if Ayana was dreaming of Lola or something else, but that single word was a crack in the girl's silence. Nia wanted to wake Zane, to tell him, but his anger from earlier stopped her. Instead, she sat outside Ayana's door, listening, guarding the moment like a secret. The next morning, Nia found Zane in the kitchen, nursing a coffee. He looked exhausted, his eyes red-rimmed. "You're still here," he said, not looking at her. "I am," Nia replied, setting a plate of yam porridge on the table. "Ayana spoke last night, in her sleep. She said, Mama." Zane's cup paused halfway to his lips. "What?" "She was dreaming. I heard her." Nia's voice was soft but firm. "She's still in there, Mr. Okoro. She just needs a way out." Zane stared at her, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Nia thought he'd lash out again. Instead, he set the cup down and said, "Don't give me hope. Not yet." Nia nodded, understanding the weight of his words. Hope was dangerous in a house like this, but she couldn't help it. Ayana's whisper had planted a seed, and Nia was determined to see it grow. As she left the kitchen, she glanced back and saw Zane staring at the spot where Ayana usually sat, his fingers tracing the edge of his cup. For the first time, he looked like a man who might be ready to fight for his daughter, and maybe for himself. The Okoro mansion was a fortress of glass and silence, its walls holding grief like a prisoner. Zane Okoro sat in his study, the whiskey bottle untouched but open, its sharp scent mingling with the salt air from the open window. Lola's painting, a riot of blues and golds, stared down at him, a reminder of the life he'd lost. Ayana's whispered "Mama" from the night before, as reported by Nia, echoed in his mind, but instead of hope, it brought a fresh wave of guilt. How could he let another woman stir something in his daughter when Lola's absence still cut so deep? Nia moved through the house like a quiet storm, her presence both comforting and unsettling. She'd been there 2 weeks, and already Ayana seemed less like a ghost. Her eyes followed Nia, her small hands less rigid around Sunny, the threadbare teddy bear. But Zane couldn't let himself trust it. Trust meant opening a door he'd bolted shut. In the kitchen, Nia was kneading dough for Puff Puff, the sweet scent filling the air. Ayana sat at the counter, watching with guarded curiosity. Zane lingered in the doorway, unnoticed, his arms crossed. "Want to help?" Nia asked Ayana, her voice warm as she dusted flour on the counter. "You can make little balls. Sunny can be the judge." Ayana hesitated, then reached for the dough, her fingers tentative. It was the most engaged Zane had seen her in months. His chest tightened, a mix of gratitude and resentment. Who was Nia to waltz in and make his daughter feel safe? He stepped forward, his voice colder than he intended. "She doesn't need distractions. She needs routine." Nia didn't flinch, her hands steady as she shaped the dough. "Routine's important, Mr. Okoro, but so is feeling alive." Zane's jaw clenched. "You don't get to decide what she needs." Ayana froze, her eyes darting between them. Nia set the dough down, wiping her hands on her apron. "I'm not deciding anything. I'm just here. For her." "And what's that supposed to mean?" Zane's voice rose, sharp with the pain he couldn't name. "You think you can fix us? You think you know what we've been through?" Nia met his gaze, her eyes steady but not unkind. "I don't know your pain, Mr. Okoro, but I know what it's like to lose someone, and I know Ayana's still fighting to find her way back." The words hit like a punch. Zane wanted to argue, to push her away, but the truth in her voice stopped him. Ayana clutched Sunny tighter, her silence louder than their words. Zane turned and left, the slam of his study door echoing through the house. That night, he stood by Ayana's bed, watching her sleep. Her small face was peaceful, Sunny tucked under her chin. For the first time in months, he whispered, "I'm sorry, baby girl. I don't know how to do this without her." But the words felt hollow, and he wondered if Nia's presence was the real threat, or the only thing keeping them from falling apart. The Lagos sky opened the next afternoon, rain hammering the mansion's glass walls like a drumbeat. Ayana stood by the living room window, her breath fogging the glass as she traced patterns with her finger. Nia was folding laundry nearby, humming a soft Yoruba lullaby, the melody weaving through the storm's rhythm. Zane was in a meeting downtown, his absence a relief after yesterday's clash. Nia glanced at Ayana, noticing the girl's fingers pause, her eyes fixed on the rain. "You like storms?" Nia asked, setting down a towel. Ayana didn't answer, but her shoulders relaxed slightly. Nia took a chance. "When I was little, my brother and I used to run outside in the rain. We'd pretend we were sailors, fighting pirates." She smiled, hoping to spark something. Ayana's lips twitched, almost a smile. She pointed to Sunny, then to the window, as if the bear wanted to see the storm. Nia laughed. "Sunny's a brave sailor, huh? Let's get him a raincoat." She grabbed a small plastic bag from the kitchen, fashioning it into a makeshift cape for Sunny. Ayana's eyes lit up, and she held the bear high, mimicking a ship's captain. It was the most animated Nia had seen her. But then thunder roared, loud and sudden, and Ayana dropped Sunny, her face crumpling. Nia knelt beside her, her voice steady. "Hey, it's just the sky talking. It's loud, but it's not mad." She picked up Sunny, brushing him off. "See, he's okay." Ayana's eyes were wet, but she reached for the bear, hugging him tight. Then, in a move that stopped Nia's heart, she leaned into Nia's shoulder, her small body trembling. Nia froze, afraid to break the moment. She wrapped an arm around Ayana, humming the lullaby again, the rain a soft backdrop. When Zane returned, soaked from the storm, he found them like that. Ayana asleep against Nia, Sunny in her lap. Nia looked up, expecting anger, but Zane's expression was unreadable. "She's okay?" he asked, his voice rough. "She's scared of thunder," Nia said quietly. "But she let me hold her." Zane nodded, his throat tight. He wanted to say something. Thank you, maybe, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, he grabbed a towel and left. The image of Nia and Ayana burned into his mind. For the first time, he wondered if he was the one pushing his daughter away. The next morning, the mansion buzzed with new energy. Grandma Ngozi and Grandpa Daimeji arrived unannounced, their old Mercedes crunching up the gravel drive. Ngozi, a stout woman with a sharp tongue and a heart of gold, swept into the house like a queen, her Ankara wrapper vibrant against the mansion's muted tones. Daimeji followed, quieter, his eyes crinkling with warmth. "Where's my granddaughter?" Ngozi called, setting a basket of mangoes on the counter. Ayana appeared, hesitant, and Ngozi scooped her up, ignoring her silence. "You're too thin, eh? We'll fix that with some proper food." Zane emerged from his study, forcing a smile. "Mama, you didn't call. And you don't visit." Ngozi shot back, her eyes narrowing. "This house feels like a tomb, Zane. Where's the life?" Nia, wiping down the counter, stayed quiet, but Ngozi's gaze landed on her. "You're the new one, yes?" "Nia." "Yes, Ma," Nia said, bowing slightly. "It's good to meet you." Ngozi studied her, then nodded approvingly. "You have a good spirit. Keep it. This family needs it." Later, over lunch, jollof rice and fried plantain, Ngozi cornered Zane in the dining room. Ayana was with Daimeji, drawing in the living room, leaving them alone. "You can't keep living like this," Ngozi said, her voice low but firm. "Ayana needs a mother. You need a wife." Zane's fork paused. "Mama, don't start." "I'm not starting, I'm finishing." Ngozi leaned forward, her eyes fierce. "Lola was my daughter-in-law, my heart. But she's gone, Zane. You're not honoring her by burying yourself with her." "I'm not burying anyone," Zane snapped, but his voice lacked conviction. Ngozi softened, touching his hand. "That girl out there, she's watching Nia like she's the sun. And you're fighting it. Why?" Zane pulled his hand away, standing. "Because it's too soon. Because it's not fair to Lola. Or Ayana." Ngozi sighed, her voice gentle but unyielding. "Fair. Life isn't fair, my son. But love is a gift, not a betrayal. Think about that." Zane left the room, his mother's words echoing. In the living room, he saw Ayana hand Nia a crayon. The two of them bent over a drawing. Ngozi's voice lingered, and for the first time, Zane felt the weight of his own resistance. The following day, the mansion felt lighter, as if Ngozi's presence had cracked a window in the gloom. Nia was in the garden, weeding the overgrown flower beds, when Ayana appeared, clutching a piece of paper. The girl's eyes were bright, almost mischievous, a stark contrast to her usual somberness. "What's this?" Nia asked, brushing dirt from her hands. Ayana handed her the paper, then stepped back, clutching Sunny. Nia unfolded it and froze. The drawing showed 3 stick figures, a tall man with Zane's glasses, a small girl with a teddy bear, and a woman with a yellow head wrap. Nia. They held hands under a bright sun, a rainbow arching overhead. In the corner, faintly, was another figure, a woman with long hair, smiling but separate, like a memory. Nia's throat tightened. "This is beautiful, Ayana. Is this us?" Ayana nodded, her eyes searching Nia's face. Then, in a gesture that felt like a vow, she pointed to the woman in the head wrap and hugged Nia's leg. Nia knelt, her voice soft. "You want me to stay, don't you?" Ayana nodded again, her grip tightening. Nia's heart ached. She hadn't planned to get this close, hadn't expected to care so much. Her own past, a tangle of loss and sacrifice, made her wary of promises. But Ayana's trust was a weight she couldn't ignore. Zane appeared at the garden gate, his expression guarded. "What's going on?" Nia stood, holding the drawing. "Ayana made this. You should see it." Zane took the paper, his eyes scanning the figures. His breath caught when he saw the faint outline of Lola in the corner, separate but present. "She drew all of us," he said, his voice barely audible. "She did," Nia said, watching him carefully. "She's trying to tell us something." Zane's hands trembled, the drawing crumpling slightly. He looked at Ayana, then at Nia, and for a moment, his walls seemed to crack. But then he folded the paper and handed it back. "Keep it safe," he said, his voice tight, and walked away. Nia watched him go, the drawing heavy in her hands. Ayana's small hand slipped into hers, and Nia knew. She was part of this family now, whether Zane was ready to admit it or not. That evening, the air was thick with the scent of jasmine as Nia and Zane found themselves alone in the garden. Ayana was asleep, exhausted from the day, and the mansion was quiet. Nia was watering the newly weeded flower beds when Zane appeared, his hands in his pockets, his expression softer than usual. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, surprising her. Nia nodded, setting the watering can down. They walked in silence at first, the crunch of gravel under their feet the only sound. Finally, Zane spoke, his voice low. "I'm sorry about yesterday. In the kitchen, I was out of line." Nia glanced at him, her head wrap catching the moonlight. "You're protecting your family. I get it." Zane stopped, looking at the jasmine vines. "It's not just that. I don't know how to let anyone in. Not after Lola." Nia nodded, her own memories stirring, her brother's death, her mother's illness, the years of holding herself together. "I lost someone too," she said quietly. "My brother. He was my best friend. When he died, I thought I'd never feel whole again." Zane looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time. "How did you keep going?" "I didn't at first," Nia admitted. "But then I realized living isn't betraying him. It's carrying him with me." Zane's eyes glistened, and he turned away, his voice rough. "I see her everywhere. In Ayana, in this house. I'm afraid if I let go, she'll disappear." Nia stepped closer, her voice gentle but firm. "You don't let go of love, Mr. Okoro. You make room for more." The words hung between them, heavy with possibility. Zane met her gaze, and for a moment, the air felt charged, like the storm that had brought Ayana into Nia's arms. But then he stepped back, breaking the spell. "I need time," he said, almost to himself. Nia nodded, her heart racing. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." As Zane walked back to the house, Nia stayed in the garden, the jasmine scent wrapping around her. She touched the drawing in her pocket, Ayana's vision of a new family, and wondered if Zane could ever see it too. The Okoro mansion gleamed under the Lagos sun, its glass walls reflecting a deceptive calm. Inside, the air was heavy with unspoken tension. Ayana's 6th birthday was tomorrow, But Zane had made it clear, no celebrations. She doesn't need a party, he told Nia days ago, his voice flat. It'll only remind her of Lola. Nia disagreed but kept her silence, her heart aching for the silent girl, who deserved a moment of joy. Ayana sat in the living room, coloring with fierce concentration, Sunny the teddy bear propped beside her. Nia watched from the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, her mind racing. She'd seen Ayana's eyes light up at small gestures, a rainy day game, a shared drawing. A birthday could be a lifeline, a chance to pull her further from her grief. Against Zane's orders, Nia decided to act. She waited until Zane left for a late meeting, then enlisted Grandma Ngozi, who'd stayed on after her visit. A small celebration, Nia whispered over the phone. Just us, some cake and balloons. She needs this. Ngozi's voice crackled with approval. You're a blessing, Nia. I'll bring the cake. Chocolate, her favorite. The next morning, Nia woke early, decorating the dining room with pink and yellow balloons, their colors soft against the mansion's stark elegance. She baked Puff Puff and set out a small gift, a new sketchbook with a sunflower cover, a nod to Lola's music box. Ngozi arrived with a chocolate cake, her Ankara wrapper vibrant as she hugged Ayana, who stared at the decorations with wide, uncertain eyes. Happy birthday, my love, Ngozi said, kissing Ayana's forehead. Ayana clutched Sunny, her lips parting as if to speak, but no sound came. Still, her fingers traced the balloons, a flicker of wonder in her gaze. Nia knelt beside her. This is for you, Ayana. A special day, just like you. She handed her the sketchbook, and Ayana's small hands trembled as she opened it, her eyes bright with something close to joy. The moment shattered when Zane's car roared into the driveway. He stormed into the dining room, his face a mask of betrayal. What is this? He demanded, his voice low but sharp. Nia stood, her heart pounding. It's her birthday, Mr. Okoro. She deserves. I told you no. Zane's voice rose, cutting her off. Ayana flinched, dropping the sketchbook. You don't get to decide what's best for her. Ngozi stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. Zane, stop. Look at her. She's happy. Zane's eyes flicked to Ayana, who was staring at the floor, her shoulders hunched. The balloons swayed mockingly above. This isn't happiness, he said, his voice breaking. It's a reminder of what we've lost. He turned and left, the slam of his study door echoing like a gunshot. Nia's chest tightened, guilt and defiance warring within her. She knelt beside Ayana, brushing a tear from the girl's cheek. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I just wanted you to smile. Ayana leaned into her, a silent forgiveness. But Nia knew she'd crossed a line, and the cost was coming. 2 nights later, the mansion was cloaked in darkness. The oceans hummed the only sound. Nia couldn't sleep, her mind replaying Zane's anger and Ayana's fleeting joy. She slipped downstairs to make tea, her bare feet silent on the marble. The kitchen was dim, lit only by moonlight. When she smelled it, smoke, sharp and acrid, her heart lurched. She followed the scent to the stove, where a forgotten dish towel smoldered, flames licking its edges. Panic surged, but Nia moved fast, grabbing a pot lid to smother the fire. The flames flared, catching a nearby curtain. No, 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 she muttered, her voice tight. She yanked the fire extinguisher from the wall, spraying foam as the blaze grew, its heat stinging her skin. Smoke filled the room, and Nia coughed, her eyes watering. She heard a shout. Zane, running down the stairs, his face pale. Nia, get out, he yelled, grabbing her arm. It's under control, she shouted back, spraying the last of the foam. The fire died, leaving a charred curtain and a haze of smoke. Nia's hand shook, adrenaline coursing through her. Zane stared at her, his chest heaving. You could have been hurt, he said, his voice raw. Why didn't you run? Nia wiped sweat from her brow, her head drap askew. I wasn't leaving this house to burn, not with Ayana upstairs. Zane's expression softened, a mix of gratitude and something deeper. He stepped closer, his hand lingering on her arm. You saved us, he said quietly. Nia met his gaze, her heart racing for reasons beyond the fire. I just did what needed doing. Ayana appeared at the kitchen door, her eyes wide, Sunny dangling from her hand. She ran to Nia, burying her face in her side. Zane watched, his throat tight. For the first time, he saw Nia not as an intruder, but as a protector, a woman who'd risked herself for his family. As they opened windows to clear the smoke, Zane's voice was low. I was wrong about the birthday. She needed it. I couldn't face it. Nia nodded, her voice gentle. You're doing your best, Mr. Okoro. That's enough for now. But as she held Ayana, Nia felt the weight of her own words. She was falling for this broken family, and that scared her more than any fire. The next morning, the mansion buzzed with a fragile peace. The kitchen smelled of burnt fabric, but the sun streamed through the windows, casting a hopeful glow. Ayana was in the living room, drawing with her new sketchbook, her focus intense. Nia was cleaning the charred counter, her thoughts tangled with the memory of Zane's touch. Ayana tugged Nia's sleeve, her small face solemn. She held out a folded piece of paper, her eyes bright with purpose. Nia unfolded it, expecting another drawing, but instead found a crude paper ring, taped together with care. Below it, in Ayana's shaky handwriting, were the words, "Will you marry my daddy?" Nia's breath caught, her hands trembling. Ayana, what is this? Ayana pointed to the ring, then to Nia's finger, her expression earnest. She didn't speak, but her eyes said everything. She wanted Nia to stay, to be family. Nia's heart swelled, but fear followed. She wasn't ready for this, not for Ayana's hope, or Zane's reaction. Before she could respond, Zane entered, his laptop under his arm. What's going on? He asked, noticing Ayana's intensity. Nia hesitated, then handed him the paper. Ayana made this. For me. Zane read the note, his face paling. The room went still, the only sound Ayana's shallow breaths. Ayana, why? He started, then stopped, his voice cracking. He looked at Nia, his eyes a storm of confusion and pain. Did you put her up to this? No, Nia said, her voice sharp. I'd never do that. She did this on her own. Ayana stepped between them, her small hands clutching Sunny, her eyes pleading. Zane knelt, his voice soft but strained. Baby girl, we can't just replace Mama. Ayana's face crumpled, and she ran to her room, the paper ring falling to the floor. Nia's chest ached, torn between Ayana's heart and Zane's resistance. She's not trying to replace anyone, Nia said quietly. She's trying to heal. Zane stood, his hands clenched. You don't understand. You're not her mother. The word stung, but Nia held his gaze. I know I'm not, but I love her, Zane, and I think you know that. Zane froze, her use of his first name cutting through his defenses. He turned and left, the silence heavier than ever. Nia picked up the paper ring, her fingers tracing its fragile edges. Ayana's wish was a spark, but had ignited a firestorm. The next day, the mansion felt like a pressure cooker. Ayana stayed in her room, refusing to come out, her sketchbook untouched. Zane avoided Nia, his study door locked, the hum of his computer the only sign of life. Nia moved through her tasks mechanically, the paper ring in her pocket a constant reminder of the fracture she'd unwittingly caused. By evening, she couldn't take it anymore. She knocked on Zane's study door, her voice firm. We need to talk. The door opened, and Zane stood there, his eyes bloodshot, a glass of whiskey in his hand. What's there to say? He asked, his voice hollow. Nia stepped inside, closing the door. Ayana's hurting. You're hurting. And I'm caught in the middle. We can't keep pretending this didn't happen. Zane slammed the glass down, the sound sharp. You think I don't know she's hurting? She's my daughter. And you. He stopped, his voice breaking. You come in here, making her love you, making her think you can fix us. You can't, Nia. You're not Lola. Nia's eyes stung, but she stood her ground. I'm not trying to be Lola. I'm trying to be here for Ayana. For you. But you're so scared of moving forward, you're pushing us all away. Zane's face twisted, anger and grief colliding. You don't belong here. You're the housekeeper, Nia. Nothing more. The words cut deeper than she expected. Nia's hand shook, but her voice was steady. If that's what you think, then I'm done. She pulled the paper ring from her pocket, setting it on his desk. I'm not here to hurt you, Zane, but I can't stay where I'm not wanted. She turned to leave, but Zane's voice stopped her. Wait. He looked at the ring, his hands trembling. I didn't mean. I'm sorry. I can't do this. Nia nodded, her throat tight. I know, but Ayana needs you to try. She left the study, her decision made. By morning, she'd packed her duffel bag and slipped out before dawn, leaving a note for Ayana. I'll always love you, Sunflower. The mansion was a tomb without Nia. Ayana refused to eat, her meals untouched on the tray. She sat in her room, Sunny clutched to her chest, her eyes vacant. Zane tried to reach her, his voice gentle but desperate. Baby girl, please. Talk to me. Ayana didn't respond, her silence deeper than ever. Zane's guilt was a vice, squeezing his chest. He'd driven Nia away, and now his daughter was slipping further into her grief. Ngozi arrived, her face stern as she surveyed the chaos. You let her go, Ngozi demanded, her hands on her hips. That girl was a gift, Zane, and you threw her away. I didn't. Zane started, then stopped. I panicked, Mama. Ayana's note, it felt like betraying Lola. Ngozi's eyes softened, but her voice was firm. Lola would want Ayana to have love, to have a mother. You're not betraying her by living, Zane. Zane looked at Ayana's closed door, his heart heavy. I don't know how to fix this. Then start by listening to your daughter, Ngozi said, handing him a new drawing Ayana had left on the table. It showed Nia alone, a sunflower in her hand, tears on her face. Below, in Ayana's handwriting, was a single word gone. Zane's breath caught. He'd broken his daughter's heart, and Nia's too. He looked at Ngozi, his voice raw. What do I do? Ngozi touched his shoulder. Find her. Make it right. For Ayana. For yourself. Zane nodded, the drawing trembling in his hands. Nia was gone, but Ayana's silent plea was clear. He had to bring her back, or lose his daughter forever. The Okoro mansion was a hollow shell without Nia, its glass walls reflecting a gray Lego sky. Ayana hadn't left her room in 3 days, her silence a blade twisting in Zane's heart. She refused food, her small frame curled around Sunny, the teddy bear that held her mother's memory. Zane paced the living room, Ayana's latest drawing, Nia alone with a sunflower, tears on her face, clutched in his hand. The word gone scrawled beneath it haunted him, a silent accusation. Grandma Ngozi sat at the dining table, her ankara wrapper muted in the dim light. You can't keep hiding, Zane, she said, her voice firm but weary. Ayana's slipping away. You have to act. Zane's throat tightened. I don't even know where Nia went, Mama. She left no number, no address. Ngozi's eyes narrowed. Then you find her. For your daughter. Zane sank into a chair, his head in his hands. He'd driven Nia away, his fear of betraying Lola blinding him to the love she'd brought into their lives. Now, Ayana was paying the price. As he stared at the drawing, a small object fell from its folds, a folded piece of paper, creased and worn. He opened it, his breath catching. It was a receipt from a bus ticket, dated the morning Nia left, with a destination, Ibadan, a city 3 hours away. Scribbled on the back, in Ayana's shaky handwriting, was an address and a note. Find her, Daddy. Zane's heart raced. Ayana, he whispered, standing. He ran to her room, knocking softly. Baby girl, can I come in? No answer. He pushed the door open and found her on the bed, Sunny in her arms, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. You knew where Nia went, he said, holding up the receipt. Why didn't you tell me? Ayana's lips trembled, but she didn't speak. Instead, she pointed to the drawing, then to Zane, her eyes pleading. Zane knelt beside her, his voice raw. I'm going to find her, I promise. But I need you to hold on, okay? For me. Ayana nodded, a tiny movement, and Zane's chest ached with hope and fear. He kissed her forehead, then turned to Ngozi, who'd followed him. I'm going to Ibadan. Stay with her. Ngozi's eyes glistened. Bring our girl back, Zane. As Zane grabbed his keys, the receipt in his pocket felt like a lifeline. Ayana's hidden letter was a spark, and he wouldn't let it flicker out. The road to Ibadan was a blur of palm trees and dusty villages, the hum of Zane's SUV a steady pulse against his racing thoughts. The Receipt's address led to a small community on the city's outskirts, far from the Okoro mansion's opulence. Zane's hands gripped the wheel, his mind replaying Nia's last words. I can't stay where I'm not wanted. He'd been a fool, letting fear rule him, and now he had one chance to make it right. The address brought him to a modest compound, its walls painted a faded blue, chickens clucking in the yard. Children played under a mango tree, their laughter a stark contrast to the silence Zane had left behind. He parked and approached an elderly woman, sorting yam tubers on a mat. Good afternoon, Ma, Zane said, bowing slightly. I'm looking for Nia Adebayo. Does she live here? The woman studied him, her eyes sharp. Who's asking? I'm Zane Okoro. I need to speak with her. It's about my daughter. The woman's expression softened, but she pointed to a narrow path. Nia's at the school, teaching. Follow that road. Zane thanked her and walked, the sun hot on his neck. The school was a simple building, its walls covered in colorful murals. Through a window, he saw Nia, her head wrapped bright yellow, reading to a group of children. Her voice was warm, steady, just as it had been with Ayana. Zane's heart clenched. She was a world away from the mansion, yet still a beacon of light. He waited until the class ended, then approached as Nia gathered her books. Nia, he called, his voice rough. She froze, her eyes widening. Zane, what are you doing here? He stepped closer, the drawing in his hand. Ayana gave me this. She hasn't eaten since you left. She won't speak. I messed up, Nia. I need you to come back. Nia's face hardened, though her eyes betrayed her pain. You made it clear I didn't belong. Why should I go back? Zane's voice broke. Because Ayana loves you. Because I was wrong. I was scared, Nia, but I'm here now, asking you to give us another chance. Nia looked away, her hands trembling. I have a life here, Zane. I came back to my family, my students. I can't keep tearing myself apart for you. Zane held out the drawing, his voice desperate. This is what Ayana sees. You with us. Please, just talk to her. If you still want to stay, I'll let you go. Nia took the drawing, her fingers brushing his. She studied Ayana's tear-streaked Nia, the sunflower in her hand, and her resolve wavered. I'll come, she said finally, her voice low. For Ayana. Zane exhaled, relief flooding him. But as they walked back to his car, he saw the distance in Nia's eyes. He'd found her, but winning her trust would be a harder journey. The drive back to Lagos was tense, the silence between Zane and Nia heavy with unspoken words. Nia stared out the window, her hands clasped around Ayana's drawing. Zane glanced at her, searching for the right words. Thank you, he said finally, for coming. Nia nodded, her voice quiet. I'm doing this for her, Zane. Not for you. The words stung, but he deserved them. I know, but I need you to hear me. I was wrong to push you away. I saw you as a threat to Lola's memory, but you're not. You're saving us. Nia's eyes flickered with emotion, but she didn't respond. They stopped at a riverbank halfway to Lagos, needing a break. The water shimmered under the setting sun, its surface rippling with secrets. Nia stepped out, her head wrap catching the breeze. Zane followed, his heart pounding. Nia, he said, his voice raw. I'm sorry. For everything. Ayana needs you, but I need you too. I didn't realize how much until you were gone. Nia turned, her eyes searching his. You hurt me, Zane. You made me feel like I was nothing. I can't just forget that. I know, he said, stepping closer. But I'm here, asking for a chance to make it right. Not as your boss, but as a man who sees you, really sees you. Nia's breath hitched, her walls crumbling. I love being with Ayana, she admitted. And with you. But I'm scared, Zane. I've lost too much to trust easily. Zane took her hand, his touch gentle. Then let's be scared together. For Ayana. For us. Nia looked at the river, then at him, her eyes glistening. I'll stay, she said softly. But this is a promise, Zane. No more pushing me away. He nodded, his throat tight. I promise. As they stood by the river, the sun dipping below the horizon, Zane felt a shift, a new beginning, fragile but real. Nia squeezed his hand, and for the first time, he believed they could heal. The mansion's gates loomed as Zane and Nia pulled into the driveway, the night sky a blanket of stars. Ngozi met them at the door, her face lighting up. You found her, she said, hugging Nia tightly. Where's Ayana? Nia asked, her voice urgent. Upstairs, Ngozi said, her eyes soft. She's waiting. Nia ran to Ayana's room, her heart pounding. The door was ajar, and Ayana sat on her bed, Sunny in her lap, her eyes dull. When she saw Nia, her face froze, then crumpled. She leapt up, running into Nia's arms, her small body shaking. Nia knelt, holding her tight. I'm here, Sunflower. I'm not leaving again. Ayana's lips moved, and then, in a voice so soft it was almost a whisper, she spoke her second full sentence. Please come home, Mama. Nia's eyes filled with tears, her heart breaking and mending at once. I'm home, Ayana. I promise. Zane stood in the doorway, his chest tight. Hearing Ayana call Nia Mama was a knife and a bomb, cutting through his guilt and filling him with hope. He stepped forward, his voice low. Ayana, I'm sorry I let her go. I won't make that mistake again. Ayana looked at him, then at Nia, and nodded, her small hand reaching for his. Zane took it, his eyes meeting Nia's. The room felt alive again, the silence replaced by a fragile harmony. Ngozi appeared, her voice warm. Come, let's eat. This family needs to sit together. They gathered in the dining room, the table set with jollof rice and egusi stew, the air filled with the scent of home. Ayana ate a small bite, her first in days, and Nia smiled, her hand resting on the girl's shoulder. Zane watched them, his heart full. Lola's absence was still there, but it no longer consumed them. 3 months later, the Okoro mansion glowed with new life. The garden bloomed with sunflowers, planted by Nia and Ayana, their yellow petals a tribute to Lola's memory. Ayana's laughter echoed through the halls, her voice slowly returning, word by word. She still carried Sunny, but her grip was lighter, her eyes brighter. Zane and Nia had grown closer, their bond built on quiet moments, walks in the garden, late-night talks over tea, shared glances when Ayana smiled. They weren't married, not yet, but the paper ring Ayana had made sat on Nia's dresser, a promise of what might come. One evening, Zane called them to the living room, a nervous energy in his voice. A new picture frame sat on the mantel, its wood carved with sunflowers. Inside was a photo of Zane, Nia, and Ayana, taken in the garden, their smiles tentative but real. Beside it stood another frame, holding a photo of Lola, her vibrant smile eternal. Ayana gasped, her hand squeezing Nia's. It's us, she said, her voice clear. Zane knelt beside her, his eyes soft. This is our family, baby girl. All of us. Mama Lola's here, watching over us, and Nia's here, loving us. Nia's eyes glistened, her hand touching the frame. You kept her with us, she said, her voice thick. Zane took her hand, his voice steady. She's part of us, always. But you're our future, Nia. You and Ayana. Ayana hugged them both, her laughter a melody that filled the room. The mansion was no longer a mausoleum but a home, its walls echoing with love. As the ocean hummed beyond the cliffs, Zane looked at the two frames, his heart at peace. They'd found their way back to each other, and nothing would break them again. The end.